I'm now pleased to invite our second discussant, Dr. Saumya Saxena, to offer her comments and observations. Dr. Saxena, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Noman, for inviting me to this. And Soumya, congratulations on an excellent and a very impressive doctoral research project. And I was also so happy to see it because it's so important and so significant in this day and age. And you've done such an excellent job. And some of my questions are also just general wonderings. And the bit on data I shared with Megan, so I'm not going to repeat it. I'm going to ask you the specific ones first and then maybe the broader questions about the argument. So the specific one was, and you've partially answered it, is about the witnesses. Who are the witnesses in, because Special Marriage Act requires three as opposed to Hindu Marriage Act, which requires only two because religious marriage is, of course, like less suspect and all of that. And it does pervas. For instance, these are couples who are leaving town, they're leaving villages and moving to bigger cities to register their marriage, also to be away from families. So, do they have friends, or does Parvaz, are they in a position to basically also provide a witness? Because, for instance, if you read Solanki's work or Vatuk's work, in a lot of ways, what these NGOs are doing is they're also working with the legal process in very creative ways. So, are they in a position, if there is a couple who knows absolutely no one there, could they ask the clerk sitting around or the next couple waiting for the registration to act as witnesses? So, that was just the most specific question on how do they go about the technicalities of the Special Marriage Act. Now, Special Marriage Act, like you've recognized, has, there are, of course, procedural difficulties built into it and procedural difficulties that have evolved over time. So, for instance, the 30-day notice period was always there, but the no objection certificate and the affidavit, those are procedures that have come up within states because the state has kind of tightened its grip on interreligious marriage and the suspicion around it. And like you recognize that particularly the male, sort of part in this marriage is going to be vulnerable to all sorts of criminal cases like kidnapping and so on and so forth by the woman's side of the family. So in this case, how do couples feel? So for instance, we've also seen a lot of cases. Hadia, which you also mentioned in your abstract, was a case where religious conversion was just also the easier and the faster route than Special Marriage Act, right? Because the Maulvis are more likely to be like, okay, convert and you can do it, or Arya Samaji wedding that way is just a faster route to convert. But because of all of these, 8 states and now more kind of being added to that list of states kind of criminalizing interreligious marriage quite specifically, does that in one sense make Special Marriage Act kind of the law that people in this case really value? Because general disdain for law that we see when it comes to state surveillance and marriage is around personal laws, what families can do, how a high court, for instance, the structure of law itself would constantly reiterate things like parental consent in marriages, so on and so forth. But Special Marriage Act, despite its problems, becomes this kind of sort of space of hope for these couples, despite everything that comes with its procedure. So how do couples really? How does that shape their relationship with the law? Is it aspirational? Is it are they taking refuge under this law, or is there also a lot of suspicion around the state because of what the go through and witnesses and where do they live and where do they spend those 30 days after which the registration happens? So I'm very curious to learn about the on the ground process of how these couples complete registration in the first 30 days when the state is literally on their case to find out what's going on. The more zooming out, the final kind of point which I was thinking about was the latest conversation that's now started in India around uniform civil codes, right? Which is about states enacting these neutral laws that will apply across religion. And of course, it's being sold as this idea that will do away with obscurantist practices of Muslim personal law and allow all people to kind of marry under it. But it's creating, of course, as we know, a new regime of surveillance, particularly in Uttarakhand. We have cases where couples are registering under it, and interreligious couples again, there is concern about their information leaking, so on and so forth. And the state in general is very hostile towards interreligious conversations. In this case, is there greater suspicion then around the law, or are people hopeful? at all, because it seems like this is Hinduization of the law as a whole. And, in one sense, they've taken the UCC of Uttarakhand is literal borrowing of the Hindu Marriage Act. Two-thirds of it is verbatim borrowed from Hindu Marriage Act. But is there any room for maneuver for these couples? Is there any scope of protection that these new laws offer for these couples that, might attract them to these states, or is it actually just as bad as it seems? I'll stop there, but congrats on an excellent project, and I do hope to read your book when it comes out.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saxena, for those thoughtful and illuminating comments. Your reflections have brought valuable legal and socio-historical dimensions to the discussion.